Got another video on the 2016 Dodge Journey. Seems to be leaking quite a bit of oil, and it's actually coming from the oil filter housing slash cooler. This is a common issue on these 3.6 liter Pentastar engines. It's just made out of plastic, so we're going to go ahead and upgrade the oil cooler and oil filter housing to an aluminum one. So go ahead and pop your hood. Okay, so with your hood popped here, I'm actually doing 3 separate videos all at once on this vehicle. That way the video is not super long. So I'm going to be replacing the oil cooler slash filter housing, and then on a separate video I'm going to be doing the spark plugs, and then on a third video I'm going to be replacing the thermostat housing. So bear with me if I leave anything out. Hopefully I get everything covered here. Like I said, I just don't want the video to be, 2 hours long or whatever. So first thing you'll want to do is let's go ahead and remove this engine cover here. This is just plastic, and it just pops right off the engine cover here. So just kind of lift up on it. And if you take a look here, you can see you got these like rubber tabs, and they just snap into these little ball things on there. So get that out of the way. So what I'm going to be replacing is this is your oil filter housing here. And then right down below there is your oil cooler. And like I said, this is just made out of plastic, and a lot of times when people are changing this oil, they tighten this cap too much, and that can crack that plastic housing and everything, which creates a leak. And it's kind of hard to see, but once we get all down in there, you'll be able to see. But this whole engine valley down in here is just filled with oil, and what happens is that starts to fill with oil. It starts to leak down and then goes back down by the transmission bell housing there, creating a big leak. So that's what we're going to be replacing. And in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and have to remove this whole upper and lower intake and everything on it. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So before I go ahead and start pulling this whole intake and everything, I'm going to go ahead and take some compressed air, blow out all this. There's a bunch of leaves and debris and everything on here. Okay, so before we go ahead and start pulling the intake and all that, since we are messing with the oil cooler, which coolant cools the oil, we will need to drain the cooling system. You don't have to drain it all the way, but like I said, I'm doing a separate video as well on the thermostat housing. So I'm going to go ahead and drain the whole system here. So just locate your coolant reservoir here, and make sure the vehicle's cool before you do this. But let's go ahead and remove that cap there so it's able to breathe. So just twist it, and then you kind of just push down, and you can pull that off. So next, in order to drain the radiator, we're going to need to remove this plastic cover underneath here, and it's kind of hard for me to fit under here, so I'm going to go ahead and jack it up, put it on some jack stands. Take my jack, I'm going to jack up right under here, and then we'll put some jack stands underneath the pinch welds. And then grab yourself a couple jack stands. You can see I got my other side set up already. We're going to go right underneath the pinch weld here. And then we'll go ahead and lower it. So in order to gain access to the radiator drain petcock, we need to remove this little plastic shield here, which stretches all the way from one wheel to the other side there, and it's just held on by these plastic clips here. So we'll go around and take all these out. I just use this little like trim tool here, and you get up underneath that first part like that, kind of pull out, and then get up under the larger round area. Actually, let's see if I can pull this out a little more, and they'll just kind of pop out like that. Same thing on this one here. Kind of hard getting up under it. So just like that. So you just pull out on that first round part there, and then go underneath the larger area. So go around and remove all those. And then right inside the wheel well here, you'll have one right here. It's pretty much the same style there. Just try to get up underneath the round first part there. If if you can without breaking it. Get up under that. Pull that out most of the way, and then you get up under the larger portion. Pops out just like that. And then again, just follow that all the way along the front bumper as well. That's holding this on as well. All right, guys, so as you can see, all these are just breaking on me. Just this plastic, it's so brittle and stuck up in there. So if I have to, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut all these off. And like I said, I'll go ahead and put new ones in. And then you can see some of these aren't even, this thing's kind of broke as it is. You can see down there. So a lot of these aren't even inside there. It looks like this one's just holding that on. All right, so once you finally are done removing all them clips, I should be able to kind of pull this down out of here. And you can see that just drops down like that. And then what you'll want to do, come over to the driver's side here, and you can see that little blue Phillips head plug there. That's going to be your radiator drain petcock. So I'm going to grab a Phillips screwdriver. We'll go ahead and loosen that, get a drip pan, and we'll go ahead and drain the radiator. So get yourself a large drip pan or something to collect the coolant in. And let me go ahead and unscrew this. And I'm not going to pull it out all the way, just kind of let it do a steady stream like that. So go ahead and let that drain. So now we can start unplugging some of these sensors here and stuff. So you got this one here. Should be able to just push in with your thumb here and unplug this one, just like that. And looks like we got one of them clips right there. So get up under the smaller part here if you can. Those are just hard to get off for some reason. I just don't know why Dodge can't use just a, you know, a bolt or something to make it a lot easier, because plastic just gets brittle. There we go. Pull that guy out of there. Then on the side here, you got this wire loom. It's probably a Christmas tree style clip holding that on, so get up under that. Break that free. Next, let's go ahead and undo the throttle body connector here. So you got this gray tab here. So if you take a flathead screwdriver and you can kind of push out on it like that. And then with that out, you can squeeze it and then just unplug it right there like that. And then this, you can see this kind of came off, but it has these little teeth here holding it onto that little thing there. So then you can pull off this hose here. This should just come right off like that. And then this did have a red clip right here. I barely touched it and it just broke off. But what you want to do, take your flathead on the back side here, just kind of push out on it, and then you should be able to unplug that. I believe this is the map sensor here. Oh, you can see that clip just fell out, so try and squeeze this, unplug it, just like that. And looks like we got a Christmas tree style clip there. better set. That unplugged. And then it looks like, so you got a little clip right back in here as well. So if you just pry up right here, that undoes that. Kind of tip this out of the way here. Looks like you got a little clip here going around this hose. So you can just kind of pull up on that. That's what that looks like. So just tilt that out of the way. Grab you a large flathead or something. Let's see if we can pry this hose off here, off the intake. Just kind of get behind it. See if you can just kind of loosen it. Like that. And it looks like you got a vacuum hose here. This actually goes to your brake booster. So we need to undo it right back in there. So again, just take a flathead. So you can kind of just pry. Get that one off of there. Actually, let me move my camera so I can get my screwdriver in there. Just like that. That's what that looks like. Just be careful as you're prying, since this intake's just made out of cheap plastic here. So next I'm going to remove, I think I'm going to do this whole air intake right here. I'm not sure if this whole piece is going to come out with the intake or if I need to remove that separately. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do on that. But let's go ahead and take off this hose clamp here, or loosen it. It's going to be 8mm right here, going to your air filter housing. So loosen that one. And then just kind of follow it back here. Behind your throttle body, you got another hose clamp right there. Let's go ahead and loosen that one. And yeah, let's see if I can just remove this whole piece here. So I'm going to pull out on the air filter housing here. And then just kind of pry out. And oh, looks like I'm getting caught on a clip over here. So you got this clip here holding onto that tube there. Let's see if we can pop that out of there. There we go. Now you should be able to pull this out of here. Oh, so it looks like that other line right back in there is clipped onto that as well. See, that just popped off of there. That's all right. So get that out of the way. So next, it looks like we got two 10mm nuts here that are holding the intake on, and you can see it's got a stud as well. So let's go ahead and remove the 10mm nuts for now. And then come up to the front here, and you can see you kind of got the same thing. You got one right there, and this one's kind of underneath here. So let's remove those two nuts. Okay, so in order to get this intake off, we're going to need to get these two brackets out of the way here because the studs will not clear it, as you can see. So I'm going to see if we can pull these brackets off or loosen them enough to kind of tilt it out of the way. And so on the bottom, each one of these, you'll have a 13mm nut. But on this one here by the oil dipstick, let me grab a flathead screwdriver and let's pop off that little wire loom cap there. So you can see that just kind of pops off the stud there. Kind of hard for you guys to see that, I think. Kind of wanted to leave these attached so I don't break them, but let's just see if I can pull them off real quick so you guys can maybe see a little better under here. Okay, like I said, I just don't want to break them since this is just plastic. Let's see if I can get this one off down here. Okay, so now you guys can kind of see a little better there. So there's that nut right there. And then this side here, let me take this one off. Pop that one off there. So I'm gonna pull that nut off there, holding this bracket on. That's gonna be a 13mm. So let's pull that off there. And let's see if this bracket we can kind of get this line off of here. So it's kind of just off that stud for right now, give us a little more room. And then next I'm going to take a 13mm open end wrench here, and I'm going to just loosen up this nut here. We'll try to bring it back enough, and like I said, hopefully we can bring this bracket back some. See if this is going to work or not. Just an open end 13mm. Go ahead and loosen that. Nut should be connected to that stud, I think. Okay, so kind of like that, you can see all you got to do is really just loosen it, and now you can see this bracket. Actually, let me bring my camera up here. You can see this bracket now is off of the stud there. So let's go ahead and do this other one here. We'll go ahead and do the same thing to this one here. This one's kind of hard for you guys to see, but like I said, just take your 13mm, try to get down in there. Once you get it broken free, it's actually pretty easy to get out, unscrew by hand here. just like that. So now that stud right here is off of that bracket. Okay, so on the back side here, I think I'm gonna kind of do, we might be able to actually get this off by kind of sliding forward on the intake, but I just want to be safe. So you got the same, kind of like on the front there, you got your two studs here that the intake's gonna get caught on. So we got this black bracket here along with the silver one here. And if you take a look, you can see right there, you're gonna have a 13mm nut, which is holding the silver bracket on, which connects to this line here. So let's go ahead and remove that nut first. Let's break that free. Pull this nut off here. Just try not to drop it. So there's that. And then this line. I was hoping this would come off. Be able to slide off of there, but off that stud, but there's not very much wiggle room, is there? Yeah, that just does not want to come off. All right, guys, so that bracket just does not want to come off there because of these hoses, and I don't want to bend anything. So I think what I'm going to try, let's just see if we can get the intake out with leaving this black bracket the way it is. Like I said, hopefully we can kind of scoot it out of the holes here. So now let's go ahead and start loosening and pulling out our intake bolts here. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to have to remove this first because we need to access, there's a bolt for the intake underneath this tab here, kind of like that one right there. So I'm gonna have to remove this first, I guess, or at least get it out of the way. So I was just kind of wiggling here. And you can see it kind of wiggles, looks like it's gonna wiggle right out of the throttle body there. And I felt around back here, and I think there's those rubber grommets that it kind of snaps into, kind of like this right here. So I think we just kind of pull up on that, and then let's just see if we can kind of get it out of the way, or if we can fish it out of there real quick. So I'm gonna see if I can pop up on the back side here. This doesn't, okay. So that kind of popped out. Back behind, there we go. And then, okay, so yeah, that just kind of slides off. There's no clamp or anything on the throttle body here, just this rubber piece. And I'm actually gonna leave it kind of like that for right now. And then once we get this intake and throttle body out of the way, then should be able to move that out of the way a lot easier. So now we can go ahead and start removing these intake bolts. So if you take a look here, you got 8mm is what they're going to be. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it looks like a 7th one right there. So let's go ahead and loosen up those and see if we can get this intake off. And these won't be on there very tight, and you can just kind of loosen them. You don't have to totally remove them, just kind of pull them up so they sit kind of like that. And looks like for that one I need to get a smaller socket to get in there. Okay, so I think that's all of them. So now let's see if we can get this intake off of here. Like I said, I'm gonna try to slide it out of the bracket here, those studs. So let's see if we can just lift up. then just kind of slide it out just like that. And then you can go ahead and remove this foam piece here. Next, go ahead and take you a clean rag. I'm going to cover up this intake here. You don't want to drop anything down in here. Your valves are down in there, and drop anything down in there, then good luck getting it out. So I'm just going to kind of cover this for right now, just to make sure I don't drop anything down in there. And now we should be able to get this out of the way as well. Let's pull that up out of the way here. And if you take a look, you can see these are those rubber things I was talking about, and they just snap onto those balls back there behind the valve cover. So before I go any further, I'm just gonna make sure this rag is in place here. And then you can see, still got a lot of dirt and debris in here, especially where that foam piece was. So I'm just gonna make sure this is nice and covered. I'll hold it with my hand, and I'm gonna blow out some of this dust and debris. So now we're gonna need to unplug all our coils, and then gonna have to unplug our fuel injectors as well, because we're gonna need to get this wiring harness out of the way here, and then our fuel line, because we're gonna need to remove this lower intake. So go ahead and unplug these. So all you got to do, should just have to press down on this tab here, and then either push in and pull out. So that just unplugs like that. So go ahead and do that to all these. So next, grab a rag, just kind of stuff it up underneath the fuel line here. And let's go ahead and disconnect this fuel line. So you can see you got a green tab on top here, and then you got the same thing on the bottom. So what you're going to want to do is squeeze those together, and then you're going to want to push this line in and then pull out. There shouldn't be very much fuel pressure built up on this. So like I say, I'm going to push in on this one. Same with this one. Push in and then just pull out. And you can see barely any fuel pressure was on that. So just kind of tuck this away right here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and disconnect our injectors. So you see you got this little red locking tab here. So what I like to do, just take you a little pick with a hook here and just get up right underneath that red tab right there. And just be careful and just pull up on it just like that. And then you should be able to squeeze on this black part right here. And then just unplug. So show you a little better here. So yeah, there's that clip, and then you just squeeze on this plug or that black part right there, and then you just pop it right off. So if you can get right underneath this red tab here just with your hook, and then just kind of pop that up like that. There we go. So let me get my trim tool, and let's disconnect these here. Get up under those without breaking them. Kind of like that for now. Let's go ahead and do the back side. And as you guys can see on that one, I pried a little too hard so the whole clip came out, but that's okay. We can still put it back in there. And actually, let me get all these clips undone first. This backside's a little harder to get your fingers in there. Again, just make sure you cover your intake. You don't want anything falling down in there. And I'm actually gonna undo these first. Give me a little more room here. Actually, let me move my camera. It's hard to get in here. Alright guys, so for some reason this back one's being stubborn here. So I'm going to see if I can remove this whole clip out of here, see if that'll help. So pull that whole thing out of there. There we go. And if you take a look here, so like I said, you can put these back in there. So those will just go in there. Oh, if I can get it in here correctly. Oh, it's going the wrong way. So these will go in there, just kind of like that. Same thing on this one here. So you just grab it, stick that down in there, and that just sits in there like that. Next, undo this tab here, right by your fuel line there. Go ahead and pop that one off there. I can get up under it. Like that. Now let's see if we can just kind of get this wire loom out of the way here. Let's go underneath the fuel rail here, or your fuel line there. Same with this one. So just kind of, if you can tilt it back out of the way here. Just kind of tuck it away. It's kind of like that. And then you go ahead and remove your rag here. Just make sure nothing's going to fall down in there. So now we need to remove this whole lower intake here with the fuel rails and fuel injectors, everything. So you got, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. So it looks like 8 8mm bolts that we need to remove. So let's go ahead and remove those. And then as you're doing this, just make sure your socket's not going to come loose and drop down in there. So just make sure those are all loose. And let's see if we can just remove this whole piece here. And actually it looks like got a clip right there we need to remove. we should be ready to pull it. So that'll just lift right out of here. And then just be careful when you're setting this down. You don't want to ruin your fuel injectors or any of that. You can see those sticking out right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab my vacuum and I'm going to suck up. You can see all these little black plastic pieces and gray pieces just from these wire loom clips and everything. They just get brittle and they start falling down, and then some of this dirt here. So I'm going to grab my vacuum and just suck some of this up so they don't end up falling down in there really quick. And then I'm just going to take a rag, clean rag, and shove it down each one of these here. Just kind of like that, so nothing falls down in there. So then you can come on the back side of the oil cooler here. You got the sensor here. And it looks like, so if we pull back on this red cap, it looks like, yeah, so like that. And then you use your finger here, and that'll press down and unplug right there. And then we got another sensor here. Looks like if I just, yeah, you can hear it clicking right there. So if I push, and let's see if we can, I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to pull this out because it's kind of, oh, there we go. Okay, so that one unplugs like that. Then we got that coolant line here, which it's gonna be really hard getting a pair of pliers in there. So I wonder if we need to remove the whole cooler first, filter housing, to get that turned enough off of there so we can get a pair of pliers on there. So let's go ahead and do that. And actually it looks like we got another wire clip right there as well. So let's remove that first. All right, guys, well, that just broke off there. Just a pain getting that off, but that's all right. It'll still sit in there once we get it back on. Okay, so now we should be able to remove the filter housing with the cooler. So if you take a look here, you can see you got a Torx E8 screw there, and then you got another one right here, and then on this side, one right there, and then another one there. So total of 4. So let's go ahead and remove those Torx E8s real quick. All right, guys, so it looks like I missed one. So you got another one right back in there. So a total of 5 of those E8 Torx screws there. So let's remove that one. Now let's see if we can pry this up out of here. Just kind of wiggle it loose. Kind of pops up there. And now you can see we can access this hose here. So let me grab a pair of pliers. Just get you a pair of pliers, channel locks, whatever you want to use. Slide that clip off over the whole hose. And let me grab a rag here. Pull this whole thing off here. There we go. So just like that, Get yourself a oil container or something to set this in, because if not, it'll make a mess. Okay, so with our oil cooler out and filter housing, all that, you can see just the big mess it makes. This is why there's so much oil underneath on the undercarriage there, because what happens is this starts to pool up in here, and then when you're taking turns and that, it'll start sliding off, and then it goes down. You can see just the oil, it'll run down into there, and then it just starts getting all over everything. I'll have to take a look at the old filter housing there, see if it was a gasket or what. But I need to let my camera charge really quick here for a while. So I think while it's charging, I'm gonna go ahead and try and suck up some of this oil here. You can use a fluid extractor, which I don't have. So I'm just gonna try and use some rags here. Just try not to drop anything down in those holes as well. And I'll go ahead and let this soak up and see if I can get this all clean. All right guys, so I got my camera all charged, and you can see I got this all cleaned out. So what I ended up using, just an old washer fluid jug here, and then you can use like an old lotion pump or something. But what I did was I just stuck this down in here and then started pumping, and then of course pumping that into this jug here. You can see actually quite a bit of oil came out of there that was sitting down in that valley. So that's probably the easiest way to do this if you don't have a fluid extractor. And then I went ahead and just kind of cleaned up where the O-rings go. Just use a little Scotch-Brite and cleaned up those areas there. So now we should be ready to install the new one. I think what I'll do first though is I'm going to take some compressed air and then just blow out these holes where the screws that hold the oil filter housing on, just to make sure there's no oil down in there and that we get the correct amount of torque on that. And then I'll just take a rag and kind of cover up the hole right around it, stick my compressed air down in there. All right guys, let's take a look at our new oil filter housing here and cooler. So I went with one. It's from a company called SKP, SK926959. I got this from rockauto.com. I'll put a link in the description to it. You can see it is made in China, but if you take a look here, it seems to be made pretty well. So you can see it's all aluminum. Of course, you got your oil filter and then your cooler there, and then it comes installed with all the new gaskets and everything already on there, and this O-ring, and then also comes with 2 brand new sensors as well already installed on there, so that's kind of nice. Comes in this nice protective box and everything, and then you also get new gaskets as well for your intake, and then of course the new screws. I wanted to go with the Dorman one because the Dorman one is made in USA, but it's pretty much the same identical thing to this. But it's really hard to find that one right now because these are on back order so much, just because everybody's going through them. And if you take a look here, let me get this out of the way. So if you look at our old one here, it's pretty much identical to that one. The plugs are already installed on that new one as well. And it's kind of hard to tell where it was actually leaking from. I don't know if it's because some of these gaskets are just flattened and everything. Can't really tell if it was leaking along here, but you can see that O-ring is real flat as well. But definitely needed replaced. So let's go ahead and get that new one in. Okay, so I went ahead and just coated this one O-ring here in some fresh motor oil, just because this is going to slide downward and I don't want that going in dry there. So now let's go ahead and should be able to connect this coolant hose here. Just get that kind of slid on there till it stops. And then you want to try to get that clamp lined up the way it was on the hose when it came off. That way you don't have any leaks. So I think about right, probably about right there. And actually, let me just move that out here. Try to re-grip here. Just bring it over a little bit. It's about right there, exactly where it was before. let's go ahead and set this down in here. Just make sure everything looks good down there. Go ahead and make sure your plugs here are out of the way. And you're going to need to push down that O-ring that we lubed up. So it's going to kind of click down in there. And go ahead and push down on that. And it seems like that doesn't want to push down on that a little more. Not sure why that's not going down in there. Just kind of a tight fit here. That's why I wanted to lube it up here, just to make sure. Make sure all these other O-rings are fine. Let me just grab some more oil and I'll coat that a little better here. That. And let's try this again here. See if we can just push down on this. There we go. So you got to kind of push hard just to get that O-ring to slid down in there correctly. So then we should be good. So now let's go ahead and start hand tightening all 5 of our bolts down. So grab your Torx E8 and let's go ahead and start getting these snug down here. And you want to just get them, like I said, just snug, because we're going to torque them and it's not very much at all. And I'm going to kind of go crisscross, that way it goes down on there evenly. And then you go ahead and grab your torque wrench, and like I said, those are going to be torqued to 12 Newton meters, or that's 106 inch-pounds. So I'm going to kind of go in and crisscross again. And then I'll just double check. All right, sorry about that, camera fell. But got all those torqued, so we should be good on that end. Now let's just go ahead and we'll plug in these sensors here. So go ahead and get your sensors plugged in here. And it looks like this one, it's actually facing upward instead of like before it was down. Let's get that one on there. And then of course your other one here that has the locking tab. And then push that red locking tab on there. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and clean up all along here. Get this all cleaned out, make sure nothing falls down in there. I'll use my combination of my vacuum, and I'm just going to use like a plastic scraper here. This is actually an upholstery clip remover tool, but you can see I can scrape it and it's not going to gouge any of that aluminum on here. So I'm going to go ahead and use a paper towel and then just start scraping this up, cleaning up all along here. I'll probably just spray some brake clean on one of my rags too and just wipe this down, and then just make sure nothing falls down in there. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm not going to record that because that'll probably take a little bit here, and I'll let my camera charge. All right, guys, so I got that all cleaned up there, and I actually didn't use that plastic scraper. Actually, what I ended up using was just spraying some brake parts cleaner on a rag, and then just using one of these blue rags here and just wiping it down. I got it pretty much clean all the way that it's going to get, so I think we're good there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull all these rags out of here and just make sure you get all of it out. You don't want to leave any of that in there. So go ahead and take your lower intake here. We'll flip it over. Just be careful doing this. Of course, you got a little fuel that's going to come out. And flip that over. And what you want to grab a little screwdriver or a pick so we can pick out these old gaskets here. So you can just kind of get up underneath here best as you can. Pull out these old gaskets here. Again, just be careful of your fuel injectors right there. And then I'm just going to take some more of this brake parts cleaner here, spray it on my rag, and I'll just wipe down kind of where these gaskets go really quick here. Just to kind of clean that up a little bit. Alright guys, so I got that all cleaned out as best as it's going to get. So grab your new gaskets here. Of course, it's going to be these green ones that came with the kit. And then go ahead and just set those in there. And you need to kind of firmly press them into the grooves here. They got these little round areas here that help hold them in place. Just kind of go around, get all these in there. So then go ahead and grab your intake here, make sure your gasket's all in place, and surface and everything's clean here. And then what I like to do is just kind of thread these out just a little bit to where the bolt is kind of sticking up, but it's not sticking out down there yet. So go ahead and get this in place. And kind of go on there like that. And then you can kind of just press these down. And then you always want to get these started by hand here. So let me grab my 8mm. So get all these started by hand. And then once you get all those, are started down in there, we can go ahead and get them snug here. Okay, so once you get all those kind of snug, we're going to go ahead and torque those down. And that's going to be just like the oil cooler, which is going to be 12 Newton meters or 106 inch-pounds. And there's a certain sequence you want to go. So you want to do, this will be 1, all the way over here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So go ahead and let's torque those. There's 1. Okay, so once you get all those torqued, just go ahead and double check it. So again, there's 1. Over here is going to be 2. Back here will be 3. here 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you can go ahead and get this clip back in here onto the intake there. Just lift that up. Get that pushed back down in there. And again, I'm going to take my rag here, just cover this up so we don't drop anything down in here. Then take your wire loom here for your front side, and we got to go underneath the fuel rail there. Get that pushed underneath there, and let's go ahead and we'll connect our fuel injectors right now. So try to get those pushed back on there. Make sure you hear it click. Push down the red tab. And same with this one. And then we go ahead and connect our wire loom clips here. Get those pushed back down in there. Just like that. And I'm going to leave these disconnected because I'm doing that other video replacing the spark plugs. So if you guys are interested in that, check that video out. Like I said, I'm just doing a separate one on that. So I'll leave these disconnected till I get them replaced. And then get the back side in here. Get those pushed down in there. Your other one right here. And then go ahead and connect your fuel line here. You may have to turn this green locking tab here so it lines up with it. Get that pushed on just like that, and then just pull on it because you want to make sure that's on there, especially a fuel line like that. Alright guys, so I went ahead and got all the spark plugs changed out, and then I plugged my coils all back in there. So like I said, if you're interested in that, check that video out. I figured I'd just do a separate one on it. So now we can go ahead and remove this rag here. Get that out of the way. And we'll go ahead and remove these old gaskets here. You always want to change these out. I don't recommend reusing them. So let's go ahead and pull these ones out of here. So you can just go ahead and take your flathead screwdriver, kind of pop that out. So then go ahead and take your new gaskets that came in your kit. For those of you that are watching the spark plug video, I'll put a link in the description for some gaskets like this that you can get off Amazon or whatever. Just go ahead and stick these in. And you want to make sure they're seated in there. So just kind of go around, make sure it's seated all the way down. And then next I'm just gonna get this set back in there again, just because it's easier to do this now. Like I said, not get it pressed down in there or anything, just kind of set back in here, just because that's kind of a pain. So like that. And then take this little foam insulator, go ahead and get that set on here. Kind of like that. You can see those two little holes go in there. All right, so let's go ahead and get our intake in. And then I did clean this throttle body. It was all gooked up and black. So I went ahead and used some throttle body cleaner and cleaned that up as well. And then also the backside where those gaskets are going to go as well. Just kind of wiped up some of the oil that was on there. So let's get this set on. Make sure all these sensors aren't in the way. We're going to get caught or anything. And again, we're gonna set it kind of down into these two here. And again, I like to unscrew, make sure all these unscrews that are not sticking out, you know, kind of above this. Just make sure those are all kind of unscrewed. Make sure your gaskets are on there good. And go ahead and set this in here. And it's kind of hard to tell, but I need to get into the bracket there. So kind of lift up, tilt in, and then you can kind of set down. Just make sure you're setting it down evenly on here. So I think we're good right there like that. Now we'll go ahead and get all these started again by hand. So kind of got to push them down in there a little bit. Just like the lower intake. If it doesn't feel right, back it out. And as you're doing it, if you need to, you can kind of move this intake around a little bit if the holes aren't lining up for you. Just want to get them all at least somewhat started by hand here. Once you get a few threads in there, let's go ahead and snug them up. And then we'll do our final torque, and there is a sequence on this as well. So then grab your torque wrench once those are all snug here, and you can see right here it says 7 to 9 Newton meters. So I'm going to go right at 8, right at the middle there. And then the sequence is going to be, so this one far on the right here, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So go ahead and torque those down. So you can see it really doesn't take much at all. So there's 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. And 7. And then I like to just go around one more time just to make sure. So 1. So now let's see if we can get this on. Let's get this kind of put back in place here. Again, that's going to go right there on the intake. And then you got this rubber, almost like a rubber boot. That's going to kind of slide on here. So go ahead and get this in place first. Kind of slid on there like that. And then if you can get the back side here onto those plastic, the rubber onto the plastic back there. Try to push those down onto those. And I may have to get a flashlight to see a little better. So you can kind of see it on the back side there. That on. And just push down, and you can hear it kind of click on there. And then, just to be safe, you take a screwdriver and kind of push this rubber piece towards that a little more. Just kind of like that. And just like that. And then you go ahead and take your little clip here, push that down in there, push down on that. And then take this little sensor here, go ahead and plug that back in. Just like that. And plug this back into that. And then before I forget, I'm going to get that 13 millimeter nut that I took off for this bracket here. I'm going to make sure I can get that on before I forget. Let me just screw that back on there. And of course take my 13 millimeter and go ahead and just tighten that back down. Next, go ahead and move my camera here. Grab 2 of your 10 millimeter nuts that go on these studs here. Go ahead and get those on. And tighten those down. And those don't need to be really tight. Just kind of snug there, just plastic. And while we're over here, let's just go ahead and get some of this stuff put back in place. So go ahead and grab this line here. Of course, that went up above here. And we'll have to clip that back into our air intake there. This is going to go on here from your PCV valve. Get that pushed back on. Kind of like that. And then trying to remember how this all was. So I think this was above. Actually, I think this went underneath this here. Because then this clipped onto here, kind of like that. This went into here. Plug that in your map sensor there. This wrapped around here. I think it was, yeah. So this went clipped around there like that. Then you can plug this in. Then your throttle body, you can go ahead and plug that in. And this will go around that little, just kind of springs in there. So just kind of like that. And then almost forgot this brake booster hose. Those are going to go right back there on that. Make sure that's on all the way. Get your air intake put back on. So again, this goes underneath. Try to get that slid back on. The intake back there. Almost it up here. Grab your 8mm. Go ahead and tighten up the hose clamp here. Same with this back portion here. Tighten that one up. And then try to get this back around here. So that's gonna plug in. That little clip's gonna go into the air intake right there. Just like that. So now we can move on to these two brackets here. Just kind of get those in place again. Same with this one. Just kind of like that. Go ahead and get your two nuts on there real quick, just to kind of hold them in place there. Grab your 13mm, and I'm going to do this driver's side one here first. So again, I'm just going to tighten that stud back there. Get that tight. And then get this bracket back on there like that. Grab that 13mm nut. That goes right there. Little cap. Get that back on that stud down there. So just kind of push that on if you can. You have to use a screwdriver pry tool and push that back on there. Just kind of like that. You can get all these clips back in. Same with this one here. So just like that. Should be good there. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. All we got left now to do is change the oil and then, of course, fill the cooling system here. But I want to go ahead and check. You never know. Let's make sure there's an oil filter in here, and then we'll go ahead and start draining the oil. I just want to make sure that quality control didn't miss it and never put an oil filter in there. So that's going to be a 24mm. So go ahead and loosen that up. So yeah, you can see they put a oil filter in there. I'm going to go ahead and just leave this off or open up for right now, just to get a little air in there. Go ahead and take off your oil fill cap here. And then go ahead and crawl underneath here, locate your oil pan, get you something that'll hold at least 6 quarts. Locate your drain plug here. It's going to be a 13 millimeter or 1/2 inch. You can see whoever did this before, looks like they kind of rounded it off, so it should have a new plug, but hopefully we can break it free here. Go ahead and pull that drain plug. And we'll go ahead and let that drain. All right, so once that gets down to just a drip, you can go ahead and replace your drain plug here. Go ahead and wipe that up. And just go ahead and get that snug. I'll go ahead and just pull this filter back out. Looks like they already oiled this, but I'm just going to do it again. Just put a little oil on this O-ring for the cap here. Just some fresh motor oil here. And I'll go ahead and screw this back in here. Then go ahead and tighten that up with your 24 and just get it snug. You don't have to go real tight on these. That's what that O-ring's on there for. So just kind of get it snug like that. And then I'm just going to replace this oil cap for right now until we get the coolant filled and get the vehicle lowered off the jack stands and everything. So now you can go ahead and crawl back underneath the driver's side here, grab your Phillips. Let's go ahead and tighten up this radiator drain valve. Make sure that's nice and snug. Don't over tighten it though, because it'll strip out. So get it nice and snug to where it's not leaking. Next, grab your skid plate, the one I had to break all the clips off pretty much to get it off. I do have some replacement ones that I'm going to try sticking on here. So go ahead and get this in place. And this slides kind of in there. Like that. I'll get that other side here in a minute. So then just go around getting all these clips back into place. Of course, this is one of my new ones here. So kind of like that. I'm not going to record all these. I'm just going to go around, get them all in place really quick here. All right, guys. So as you can see, got all those back in. There's a couple that were broke because this, like I said earlier, was broken. But I got all those in. And then also don't forget these, there's those 3 right here. So don't forget to get those clips in as well. So let's go ahead and grab our jack now, and we'll go ahead and get this lowered off the jack stands. All right, so now we should be able to go ahead and start filling here. I'll just show you here. So here's what we collected. And you can see it goes in quarts. So there's 10. So if I tilt this towards me a little bit here, you can see the 5 quart mark right there. So it looks like it's just a little bit over 5 quarts is what we pulled out of here. Of course, some did go on the floor, which I wiped up. But the coolant I'm going to be using, the Mopar. I got this stuff off of Amazon. This is actually, I got 2 gallons of this from a previous project on a 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee that I worked on. This was extra. And this is already mixed. You can see I already labeled it on here, but this was the concentrate, and I mixed it 50-50 with distilled water. So I got 2 gallons of that, so 8 quarts. And for this, you want to use, it even says on here, Well, here's the part number for it. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description from Amazon. But this is the OAT coolant. You want to make sure you use the OAT in this right there, which stands for Organic Additive Technology. So let's go ahead and start filling. And then before we start filling, let's go ahead and pull that bleeder valve there on top of the thermostat housing. So you can just take a large flathead or Phillips. Go ahead and unscrew this. You can just kind of pull that out of there. And we'll go ahead and watch for coolant to come out of that. So I'm actually going to grab a couple rags and I'll set around that as well. Just so it doesn't make a mess, because we did kind of make a mess earlier when we pulled this off of here. So it's kind of like that to soak up some of the coolant there once it starts coming out of that hole. All right, guys, so I must not have hit the record button. Sorry about that. But I went ahead and filled 1 whole gallon, so 4 quarts, into the reservoir here. And as soon as I did that, right after the 4 quarts was in there, it started gushing out of the bleeder hole here. So once that started gushing out, I knew there wasn't any air. I went ahead and stuck that screw back in there and tightened it up. So now let's go ahead and fill it up a little more here to where we can get to our cold fill range. All right, so I got record this time. All right, so I'm gonna take my 2nd gallon of coolant here, and so you can see the cold fill line is gonna be right here. So if we go a little above that, it's fine, because it still needs to run through the system once the thermostat opens up. So let me go ahead and add a little more coolant here. So about right there, we're at the cold full line there. So I'm just gonna go a little bit above that. Kind of like that. And let's just see if this squeeze the upper radiator hose, if it does anything. Not really, since we already bled it out. So I'm gonna kind of just leave it like that for now. We're gonna have to add more once the thermostat opens up. So now let's go ahead and fill the oil real quick. So pull off your oil fill cap there, get your funnel, stick that down in there. So what I'm gonna be putting in here is I got some of this Pennzoil Platinum, high mileage, full synthetic 5W20, and I believe this takes right around 6 quarts or like 5.9. So I did get a single quart as well. So let's go ahead and add this whole 5-quart jug. And then I'm gonna add about half of this quart size, so that'll put us up 5.5. I just wanna make sure that we don't overfill it or anything here. Go ahead and pull your funnel out of here. Replace your fill cap here. So now we should be ready to start it. I'm not going to put the engine cover on here because I want to make sure everything's leak free before we go ahead and do all that. We'll go ahead and leave the radiator cap off there, or the coolant reservoir cap there, and we'll go ahead and start it and check our oil pressure. All right, so let's go ahead and start it. We'll take care of the oil first, so let's make sure we build oil pressure. We'll shut it off, we'll let it drain down in the pan and make sure the level's good, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the coolant. So let's go ahead and start it. So it's like started up fine. Let's go ahead and pop outside here, and let's go ahead and take a look, make sure it ain't leaking. So just take a look here. Looks like we're good around the oil filter. I don't see it leaking anywhere there. And then underneath here, of course, that is just coolant from when it was leaking out of the bleeder valve there. So I don't see any oil leaks, so it looks like we're good. So now let's go ahead and shut it off. Give it a few minutes here. We'll let that oil drain back down in the pan, and we'll check our level, make sure we're good on that. All right, so I gave that a few minutes to drain back down in the pan. So let's go ahead and check our level here. Go ahead and pull your dipstick out, wipe it. back down in there. And not sure if you guys can see that. Hopefully it zooms in here. But you can see, so we're just below the safe mark here. So I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of that half quart, and hopefully that'll bring us up into the safe mark. I may have to run by a store and grab a little more oil there, but as long as you're in the safe mark, you're okay. So let me go ahead and put that back down in there. Go ahead and add the rest of that half quart. All right, so it's been a few minutes. Let's go ahead and check our level again here. That's with 6 quarts. And so now looks like we are, you guys can see that, we're right at the bottom of the safe line there. So looks like I'm gonna have to run to the store and get some more. So if you guys are gonna do this job, you might as well just grab 7 quarts of oil. It's probably just because we're pulling off that oil filter housing and all that oil is just coming out of there. So it'll probably be safe to grab 7 quarts, just add 6, and then check it and make sure. And then if you need to add more, go ahead and do it. But we're good for now. So now we can go ahead and start it again, and we'll get our coolant temp up. So now with our oil level good, we'll go ahead and start it. So now with our oil level good, let's go ahead and reset our oil life light really quick here before we start it for our coolant and all that. So what you want to do to reset that oil life light is just press the start button here without your foot on the brake. So press it once, and then go ahead and press it one more time. So that'll pop up like that. And then what you want to do with your right foot, go ahead and press down on the accelerator pedal 3 times. You can see our oil change light says do there. So I'm going to go ahead and press it down 3 times within 10 seconds. So there's 1, 2, 3. And then go ahead and shut it off here. And now let's go ahead and start it. And that change engine oil light should not come on anymore. So it looks like we're good there. And then you can see our coolant temp down there. Of course, that's in the cold. So I'm going to go ahead and let this idle here for a while. And then also figure out how to turn on the air or the heater here. So turn your heater on all the way hot, both sides. Let that run so it gets circulated through the heater core. So let's go ahead and let this run for a little bit here. If I can't get it up to temp here because it's kind of cold out, I'll go ahead and take it for a little drive here. Alright guys, so I went ahead and let this idle for a while here while I cleaned up, and you can see our temperatures now at normal operating temperature, and I actually heard our fans kick on as well, so it's definitely up to temp. Also got hot air coming out of the vents as well, so let me turn that off. So definitely the thermostat opened up and it's flowing through the heater core, so we should be good. So let me go ahead and shut this off. And then you can see, so it climbed a little bit above the cold range there. You can see it kind of bubbling. But what I'm going to do, we can go ahead and put our cap back on for sure. So go ahead and stick that back on. And then what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and let this sit overnight. Most likely that level is going to drop a little bit at least, just because coolant expands with heat. So once that drops in the morning, I'll go ahead and just top that off, whatever it needs to get up to the cold full line here. And then don't forget to put your engine cover back on here. Again, you got these rubber little clips here that snap on to these little round areas here. So make sure you get those lined up, and then these 2 right there. So you can kind of hear them click. So just like that. All right guys, so that's going to be it for the video. Again, this was a 2016 Dodge Journey 3.6 liter. Went ahead and replaced the oil cooler / oil filter housing that was leaking, and then also drained the cooling system and refilled, and then also changed the oil as well. And I went ahead and checked that oil again one more time while it was warm. And it's actually reading full now within that safe area. So you'll be good with just 6 full quarts. So, and then for the coolant, if you get just 1 gallon of the concentrate and then 1 gallon of distilled water, you'll be okay. That way you have 8 quarts or 2 gallons, and that'll be plenty enough to do this job. So it's not the easiest job in the world, but that's why I do these videos. So if you guys follow this step by step and with just some basic hand tools, you'll be able to accomplish this job by yourself. So hopefully this video helps you out. In the morning, I'm gonna go ahead and check that coolant level, but I'll also degrease all underneath there, spray some degreaser and use my pressure washer just to get all that old oil and coolant off of there. So again, hopefully this video helps you out. If it does, why don't you subscribe to the channel, check out all my other videos, especially on this car. I got a bunch alone, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.